Hey, welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. Thank you for joining me. Now, today, I'm coming back after being gone for a few weeks. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving holiday. And I have a number of stories over the next week I want to get to that I didn't cover over the last 2 weeks. And the first one I'm going to start with is inflation. Inflation and the problems we're having in the ports out on the West Coast, especially. Now, let's start with that. Now, the ports are having their problems. There are too many goods and not enough ability to move them. Now, people may think, well, they're moving too slowly. But Pete Buttigieg came out and did a press conference and made it very clear that this is not the case. That we are moving our goods at the same rate as we always have. The problem is we have too many goods coming into an economy that is all of a sudden exploding. All of a sudden, everybody's out trying to buy stuff for Thanksgiving, Christmas, things that we didn't do last year. And I've read a number of articles over the story, and what I'm seeing is that part of the problem is the way grocery stores and big box retailers and like that do their ordering on certain goods, especially things that they're not sure how much they're going to need. They will order, on demand as they need it. Therefore, if they say all of a sudden they see they need it, they order it, and then all of a sudden it's getting bottlenecked because there's all these other goods coming in too. And it's okay. I understand how they do that. I understand they're trying to. It's a way to, keep their costs down and not buy more product than they need. I understand that, and that's perfectly all well and good. But you got the people on the right over here claiming that Joe Biden is doing this, that Joe Biden is doing it, that Pete Buttigieg is doing it, and that couldn't be further from the case. The fact is, we have more goods coming in than we can handle. Now, what I don't understand is a few weeks ago, about the same time that Pete came out and discussed the situation at the in the ports and our movement of goods, the Biden administration had decided they're going to start taxing the companies, for leaving their containers and not getting their containers moved in time. Which is an interesting move that actually worked. All of a sudden, they started threatening this tax, and all of a sudden, the shipping containers started moving. Because one of the big problems they were having were empty containers not being moved out of the way so the new containers could be emptied and move on to the trucks. That was part of the problem they were having. So there were a lot of empty shipping containers that weren't being moved because it was very hard to get in to get them. One of the crane operators there that runs their cranes or whatever they call them said only 2 of their 4 were working because they didn't have enough workers working. So sure, they may have been moving as much as normal, but they weren't able really to push through when things got stressful. Because if you only have 2 people or 2 of the cranes working, then how are you gonna be able to do more when all of a sudden you have a sudden influx? Which is exactly what happened. Now, this isn't all COVID, but a lot of it is. A lot of it is COVID recovery, and then you have the holidays, the approaching holidays. That's created a huge bottleneck at the ports. Coupled with the fact that you don't have as many truck drivers as you did 2 to even 5 years ago. The money isn't as good for truck drivers as it used to be. I read an article the other day that said that truck drivers in the 80s were making upwards of $120,000 a year in today's money. Now, they are making the value of $45,000 a year. When you talk about, cost of living adjustments and such from the 80s to now. So in the 80s, in the 1980s, they were making the equivalent to what somebody would be making at $120,000 a year in 2021. But that spending power is down. So why people aren't going to go into a profession that's not paying them? Now I understand that there are a lot of automated options coming up for truck drivers, but there's still going to have to be somebody in those trucks to make sure that things don't go awry and that things get unloaded properly, right? Well, here's the thing. They're not going to be there if we don't pay them. Truck drivers are one of the backbones of this country. Without the truck driver, you have nothing getting anywhere. These people deserve to be compensated and compensated fairly. One, if they're only able to, if they have to buy a truck, right? However much those are. I've seen it's somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 for one of those trucks, depending on what's in the truck. And if you're barely able to make your note on your truck, how are you supposed to be able to work and provide for your family when all you're doing is working for the note on your truck? It's not right. And it's definitely not okay. Now, all this does tie into the next topic, which is inflation. The issue with the bottlenecks and COVID have caused some inflation issues. And yes, inflation is more or less a regressive tax on the poor. This is a fact. And inflation is not good. But people on the right want to make you think it's just because we did Biden's bailout money, COVID relief money, forgetting that during 2020 we did 2 COVID bills signed by a Republican named Donald Trump. And the only policy that Biden has done that would have added to inflation was that bill. Now, the thing is, I don't agree that the idea that them printing the money causing inflation. I don't agree for one reason. Nobody had money. Most of the people that got the money didn't have any money. There was no money in the economy. So things, I read that several times from several economists saying that it's going to be a temporary problem. But it doesn't seem to be as temporary as we had hoped, right? But what we're finding out, a Wall Street Journal did an article very recently, just pointing out the fact that this inflation, a lot of it is fake. It is fake reactionary BS. And why? Why? Because companies are fake. They are finding fake reasons to raise their prices. You have the Dollar Tree now saying that they're going to have to raise their prices to $1.25 for their dollar items at the Dollar Tree. Now, you would think, oh, that's because they're losing money now. No. They're actually at the most profitable they have been in their existence. The Dollar Tree is making more money now than they ever have. Same goes for Walmart and Costco and all your big box retailers and all your major retailers across the country. Most of them are making more money than they've ever made. They're more profitable than they have ever been. So the notion that they have to raise their prices because of inflation? The CEO of Dollar Tree, I'm sorry, he said the silent stuff out loud. by blaming the inflationary situation or current or economy or the inflationary situation, I think he put it. Well, the fact is, that means he's raising his rates for no reason. He's doing it just because he can. Coca-Cola recently raised their prices for a 24-pack of soda from $7.99 to $9.99 in the course of 1 week. Now, I understand that it could be difficult. But how? Coca-Cola is produced right here in the United States at independent bottlers across the country, affiliated with Coca-Cola Consolidated. So how is it possible that they would need to raise their rates that much? You go through and you look at the data, and they're raising their rates just because they can. Because people say there's inflation, therefore corporate greed takes over and makes the problem worse. The inflation we should be seeing should be maybe $1 or $2 on some items. They're now saying that bologna and hot dogs are going to start costing more. Oscar Mayer says they're going to raise prices across the board. And other meat producers, processed meat producers are saying they're going to do the same thing. That 88-cent package of hot dogs from TBRS, if you see that over at Walmart, guess what? It's going to be $2. And there's no reason for it. These people are already making a killing. You don't raise prices when you're making more profit than you've ever made before. This is not inflation caused by governmental policies. This is inflation caused by greed. This is inflation caused by capitalistic greed. You want to know why so many people hate capitalism and want to run screaming from it? This is why. This right here is why. They find people in a tough situation. They are already making their money. And then they want to screw the little guy as hard as they can. They want to nickel and dime us so we can never catch up. And it should be illegal. I don't care what anybody says. This is greed. This isn't a problem caused by Joe Biden or Donald Trump. This isn't a problem caused by COVID. This isn't caused by Republicans or Democrats. It's caused by greed. Corporate greed. Anyways, this has been the Big Ranch Show. I've been your host, Jacob Keck. I'll see you down the road.